The Unmasking, a tale of prejudice and poise. The mundane hum of Greenwood Grocers in downtown Oak Haven shattered with the guttural roar of Officer Miller. He lunged, a predator scenting prey, as Mr. Elijah Vance calmly stepped past the checkout. Shoppers froze, their baskets plummeting to linoleum, eyes wide with horror as two officers, devoid of ceremony, brutally shoved a man who hadn't even uttered a cross word against the cold display. Elijah, his face a canvas of serene acceptance, offered only the barest flicker of resistance. He'd simply sought coffee and solace for his ailing mother. But in that moment, facts withered, consumed by the wildfire of prejudice. Think we didn't see you stuffing things into your jacket? People like you only know how to steal, sneered Officer Davis, his finger a venomous dart, his disdain a raw, exposed nerve. Elijah's quiet words, about a receipt, about payment made, were crushed beneath the officer's furious shouts and the rising tide of commotion. Phones emerged like digital eyes, some fueled by righteous anger, others by the macabre lure of spectacle. The air grew thick, heavy with unspoken tension. Elijah's lips pressed into a thin line, a fortress of stillness. Why not check the cameras before you humiliate me? His voice, though firm, was a controlled burn, not a raging inferno. He didn't beg, didn't rage. He simply yearned to be heard above the din of bias. But truth held no sway. The officers, drunk on their perceived authority, sought only to assert, not to discover. No need for cameras when we already know what you are, scoffed Officer Davis, a sneer twisting his lips. You're a thief, and if you don't cooperate, this is going to get a lot worse. Elijah's mind, by now, had transcended his own immediate plight. His thoughts, a poignant diaspora, traveled to his mother, to his father, unjustly accused and gone, and to the countless others he had watched endure this very same, soul-crushing ritual. The relentless shoving continued. One officer, a grotesque parody of service, rifled through his pockets while the other pinned him from behind. In the escalating chaos, Elijah's coat, a silent witness, fell fully open. Then an abrupt, chilling silence descended. Within the lining of his jacket, an unexpected truth shone, a gleaming gold badge and a crisp blue identification card. He was, in stark reality, a federal investigator, a man with over 25 years of unwavering service. The officer's aggressive bravado fractured instantly, replaced by a desperate scramble for composure. Yet, the words of admission choked in their throats. One stepped back. One stammered, his voice thin with disbelief. Is that real? Why didn't you say anything? Elijah's gaze, steady and unwavering, locked with his. I didn't have to. The crowd, moments before hushed in morbid expectation, now erupted in a cacophony of murmurs. I recorded everything. This was abuse. A woman's voice sliced through the air, sharp with indignation. Another echoed. This was pure discrimination. Still, no apology materialized from the officers. Their glances darted, searching for an escape route, as if Elijah's rank, not the profound harm inflicted, was their sole concern. Not the public humiliation, not the shattered dignity, just the cold dread of consequences. Look, sir, one ventured, a desperate plea in his voice. You have to understand, we were just doing our duty. There was a report. Elijah cut him off, his voice, though still, carrying the weight of unvarnished truth. What report? Who reported? Or was it just the color of my skin that made you act this way? The question hung in the charged air, an unfired bullet. No answer came, only the silent echo of his voice through the aisles, now filled not just with groceries, but with shame. The customers, who had been mere observers, now edged closer to Elijah, many offering words of support, others casting glances heavy with guilt for their earlier inaction. Elijah turned to them, his words a quiet, profound statement. I didn't come here as an agent. I came as a citizen, as a son, and if this happened to me, what could happen to anyone else without a badge to protect them? The officers, feeling the mounting pressure, attempted to quell the rising tide, urging him not to escalate further. Elijah merely drew a deep breath, his hands still in his jacket pockets, and walked toward the exit, never once looking back. But just as he reached the supermarket doors, Another patrol car screeched to a halt outside. A superior officer, his expression a mass of confusion, stepped out. Apparently, the two officers had escalated the fiction, calling for backup to handle an aggressive suspect. Elijah stopped short, his gaze meeting the new officers. Recognition dawned, followed by a mix of respect and deep concern. "Elijah, what happened here?" the chief asked. Elijah turned slowly, the crowd a silent chorus behind him. His answer was concise, yet devastating. "Ask them." And that, for now, was where it ended. For what was to follow would be far more than a mere apology. It would be a relentless cascade of consequences, a reckoning that would bring those who believed themselves above the law to their very knees. The superior officer, visibly discomforted by the myriad cameras recording, pushed through the swelling crowd. As he reached Elijah, the palpable tension of the scene struck him with full force. "What did you do?" he demanded of the two nervous officers, who studiously avoided his gaze. Elijah remained silent, a pillar of unwavering resolve, his badge still subtly visible as the murmuring of the crowd swelled like a public tribunal. The chief desperately tried to defuse the volatile situation, but the damage was irrevocably done. That man did nothing. They treated him like an animal. An elderly woman's voice cut through the air from the back, raw with indignation. Far from calming down, the officers began to scramble for justification. "We received an alert about suspicious behavior. One lied, but there had been no registered alert, no legitimate report. It was a fabrication born purely of prejudice, then amplified and endorsed by the uniform." The chief, who had known Elijah for years, began to grasp the true, terrifying gravity of the situation. Yet, he couldn't simply accept that two members of his own team had acted with such reckless abandon in front of witnesses, cameras, and, damningly, a federal agent. Elijah, his voice now imbued with tempered steel, stepped closer to the chief. "You know me. You know how many years I've given to this, and still I have to walk around showing my badge, so I'm not treated like a criminal." The chief nodded in a silence that spoke volumes, feeling increasingly diminished by the enormity of the error. A customer's triumphant shout pierced the air. He had already uploaded the video to social media, and it was going viral. There was no hiding what had transpired. The entire nation was about to witness how authority, unchecked by bias, could utterly stumble. One of the officers, the more impulsive of the two, desperately raised his voice, a desperate bid to reclaim some semblance of control. "It wasn't personal. We did what we thought was right. We also risk our lives every day." Elijah looked at him without a single blink. "And you think that justifies humiliating an innocent person? Using your uniform as a shield for your prejudices? What you did isn't protecting, it's abusing. And that doesn't just affect me. It affects everyone who comes after, those who don't have a badge to defend themselves." The tension reached its absolute zenith when another agent, who had just arrived, approached and whispered something in the chief's ear. The chief's face instantly paled, drained of all color. The video, he was told, was already on national news. Central Command had called. They demanded explanations. And to compound the crisis, a civil rights commission was already heading to the scene to collect testimonies. Greenwood Grocers, gripped by alarm at the burgeoning scandal, made the swift decision to immediately close its doors. The officers were moved to a discreet corner, while Elijah, now treated with newfound respect, was escorted to a private room. Inside, the chief offered an official apology, but Elijah, unwavering, refused to accept it. "Empty apologies don't heal what happened. What I need is action, accountability. Because if this happened to me, it could happen to someone else tomorrow. I want it on record. I want it in their files. I want them not to forget." The chief, defeated, nodded, promising to initiate a full internal investigation. But Elijah knew with absolute certainty that the most potent force would not be his words, but the undeniable truth the video was already broadcasting to the entire world. Days later, the story, now a national phenomenon, had truly exploded in the media. Elijah was invited to prominent national programs, not as a victim to be pitted, but as a resonant voice of unwavering dignity. The stark images of the officers yelling, shoving him, contrasted sharply with his own remarkable calm, a powerful dichotomy that resonated deeply with millions who saw their own silent struggles reflected in him. The Human Rights Commission, acting swiftly, issued a scathing report recommending severe sanctions. The officers involved were suspended without pay, and, significantly, a comprehensive reform in public interaction protocols was announced, driven in no small part by the relentless media pressure. But the most profound outcome transcended mere disciplinary action. It was a subtle yet profound shift that began to stir in the collective consciousness. Elijah received hundreds of letters, a tidal wave of gratitude, especially from older adults who thanked him for his quiet bravery, for not succumbing to rage, for maintaining his integrity when every instinct might have pushed him to the contrary. In one poignant email, a retired ex-officer wrote, "You did what many of us wanted to do, but didn't have the courage." Elijah, never seeking the spotlight, had, without realizing it, become a symbol of something far grander than himself. Now, when he walked down the street, people greeted him with a reverence that transcended formality, not for the badge, not for the uniform, but for the profound truth he had so elegantly demonstrated, that true authority is never imposed. It is earned with dignity. And though he never sought fame, he understood, with a quiet wisdom, that sometimes, for the world to awaken, someone must endure humiliation and respond not with anger, but with an unassailable truth. Because, as he himself wisely articulated in an interview, you never know who is behind a mask. Appearances can be deceiving, but respect and dignity must always be non-negotiable.